I'm Ruben Navarrette. I'm here with my friend Arnold Torres. This is the Latino Paradox. Our issue this week, President Trump has shaken up the Latino community and the country by pardoning Sheriff Joe Arpaio of Maricopa County in Arizona. Sheriff Joe Arpaio was found guilty, convicted of criminal contempt of a federal court order, a directive by a federal judge that he stop racially profiling Latinos in the enforcement of federal immigration law. Sheriff Joe should not have been, as a local law enforcement officer, should not have been enforcing federal immigration law to begin with, but even so, he was doing it the wrong way by racially profiling Latinos. In one comical example, his deputies raided a McDonald's in Phoenix, found that Spanish was being spoken in the kitchen, and used that as probable cause to start rounding up illegal immigrants.
Yeah.
You can't make this stuff up, folks.
No,
So this is where we were. President Trump this week, significantly on Friday, when a lot of folks had gone home, decided to pardon Sheriff Joe Arpaio because he says the sheriff was simply doing his job. Arnold, and I left out, and I shouldn't leave out, the important distinction here is that what Sheriff Joe really did in crossing the line was not only did he defy the judge, he also used his deputies to harass the judge and his wife, crossing a very important line that ought not be crossed with the judiciary. Arnold, what does this whole case of the pardon of Sheriff Joe Arpaio tell us about who we are as Latinos?
We are this administration's target of the only agenda item that seems to really still be playing well. People voted for him. The marches that we see in Charlottesville, these are not about issues of the past as much as they are about the fear of the future. And we are the future. And that's the fear. We're causing people a great deal of fear, and this president and many elements are making us the target. And this pardon is a prime example that it doesn't make any difference where the law is. If it deals with immigration and deals with our community, to hell with it. We're going to do what we want to do.
Yeah, I think we are the president's favorite piñata. We are a population of people that, while angry at the president, have not figured out a good way to fight him. And I can't think of any group that's particularly effective in brushing back the president, but we're not very good at it. And we need to get better at it. But I think we're a population that the president sees as sort of an easy political win. And if he's going to do something controversial like pardoning Sheriff Joe Arpaio, he knows he can get away with it with Latinos because we'll kick up a fuss and we'll go out and march. But ultimately, our arrows don't really pierce his armor. Second question, we typically deal on the paradox. What does the pardon of Sheriff Joe Arpaio by President Trump say about what we want?
I think what we always have wanted, and it's a reoccurring theme, at least from my perspective, and I believe that the vast majority of our community wants the laws to be applied the way they say they're going to be applied. There was a lot of abuses by Arpaio against those of us who are legally in this country, born in the United States. As you said, he was racially profiling. That's a major violation. That is a violation of civil rights. We want the civil rights laws to be respected, and they're not. We want the promise that this country makes about honoring its laws, being a country of the laws. We want that to be honored. So I think that's the vast majority of what our community wants. And that's what it says about what we want. But it says clearly that we're very frustrated and angered now by the fact that we're not getting that.
So I disagree. I think that what we want is confused, and we are very much in a position where we want our cake and eat it too. We want to have our cake and to eat it too. We want it both ways. There's a coin, certainly, and on one side of the coin we have conservatives who look like hypocrites this morning because they have been telling us for years that rule of law is important, that you have to follow the law, that you can't break the law, that we're a country of nation but also a country of laws. Now they're applauding the fact that a lawbreaker named Sheriff Joe Arpaio was pardoned by the president. So that makes them hypocrites. But on the other hand, there's another side to that coin. You and I have, over the years, been beaten up by people on the left, the far left, who seem to want to live in a fantasy land as if the people who come here illegally without documents often then use fake social security cards, commit another crime to find work, are somehow angels and saints. They've done nothing wrong. We're told no human being is illegal. We're told they even draw parallels and say things like everything that Hitler did in Germany was legal, and so just because something's legal doesn't mean you should follow the law. And they've dug themselves into this hole. So now this morning, they sound like hypocrites because all of a sudden they're walking around saying they support the rule of law. I could have used that years ago. You know, they could have been on our side of this. So you and I have always approached the immigration issue as a very complicated issue. And even though we want to find accommodations and a way for people to stay in the country without documents, there are people like Dolores Huerta and others who say they should be given unconditional amnesty because they did nothing wrong. Those people also look like hypocrites today. So I think we are a country, a community of people that want to have our cake and eat it too, and it's caught up to us. Last question, what are we doing wrong, and what does this pardon of Sheriff Joe Arpaio by President Trump tell us about what we're doing wrong?
Well, in this specific case, there wasn't anything that we were doing wrong. We didn't have anything to do with his violating the abuse of power and authority. He had the power to pardon, but not in the manner in which he did. But I think what we're doing wrong is that we fail to come in and understand how you resist. We fail to recognize that the hollering and the complaining and the anger that we express, which is all understandable, which I share, etc., that's not enough. You've got to channel that in very more creative direction. It's very, very important that we recognize that we're at a very, very crucial time in our evolution in this country. We are the future. That's why this supremacist movement has come up. They're afraid of our numbers.
Yeah.
And we've got to be able to do something that besides what we're doing, that in our anger, we thump our chest and say, look, we're going to shove it down your throat. We're coming. You're not going to stop us. That's not the best approach under any circumstances to take.
Right.
I completely understand it, but it's not going to get us where we need to get, which is protecting our people, doing best for our community.
I love your point about how the media and others are focused on the past and Confederate statues, but this is really a battle about the future. I think that's spot on. Really good. I think that's important to keep in mind. In terms of what we're doing wrong, I think what we're doing wrong is that we never see the picture as a whole. We never hold all parties accountable. I know Sheriff Joe. I've known him since 1997, since I worked in Arizona. I saw him most recently in November at the Bakersfield Business Conference, where we both spoke. And I've always had this part of me that I likes part of what he, his background, his law enforcement background. I knew him when he thought you shouldn't enforce federal immigration law because it was a resource issue. But he and I did agree on one thing. He had an accomplice. He had an accomplice when he did all these things that the judge called him on. Sheriff Joe Arpaio did not deport one person, not one person, because he can't. The sheriff of Maricopa County doesn't have the power to deport anybody. He rounded up those people and he handed them over. To who? To federal immigration officials, to ICE. To people like John Morton, who was the head of ICE at the time, who worked for Barack Obama. When Barack Obama then went before Congress and bragged about the fact that he was deporting illegal immigrants, okay, and don't call me a softie, I'm deporting illegal immigrants, those were numbers provided by Sheriff Joe Arpaio.
Yeah, big numbers in the Southwest.
So Sheriff Joe Arpaio had an accomplice who got away, scot-free. Latinos are doing wrong. What the Latinos are doing wrong is we don't see the whole picture. We only see part of the picture. We see simply a racist pardoned a racist. We don't even get us to first base. We need to start thinking about how we are being screwed by the political system and both political parties working in tandem against us often. That's what we're doing wrong. I'm Ruben Navarrette. This has been Arnold Torres on the Latino Paradox. Until next time.